Welcome to Digital Content Accessibility Training. My name is Erica McMahon, and I will be working with you today on learning all about digital accessibility. As part of the Technology Accessibility Committee, our mission is to create awareness and provide guidance as related to maintaining accessible digital content and educational resources for everyone in order to meet their diverse learning needs. Overall, our goal is to make it to where no individual has to disclose they have a disability. All resources needed will be accessible to all. Federal accessibility mandates take many forms, such as physical environments, our buildings, elevators, ramps, and sidewalks, but also include web and digital environments, which is the focus of our digital content accessibility policy. Forsyth Tech completed a 5-year digital accessibility plan in the summer of 2021. In this plan, we outlined the resources and training that we would be providing the college, as well as specific areas that needed attention as it relates to digital accessibility. You can find a copy of the 5-year accessibility plan on our Technology Accessibility TechLink page. Here you will also find a copy of the Digital Content Accessibility Policy and other helpful resources for making digital content accessible. A copy of the policy can also be found on the main Forsyth Tech webpage. If you come down to the bottom of the page and select Accessibility, a new page will open in which outlines the Forsyth Tech commitment to digital accessibility. Here you can also find links to other policies, including the Purchasing Handbook policy for the new or renewal policy of software purchasing, accommodation guides, as well as other resources, including the Americans with Disabilities Act, Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act, and information regarding web content accessibility. We have laid out definitions for you, as well as the shared responsibility that everyone has when it comes to digital content accessibility. Over the past 5 years, we have made several strides across the college to implement accessibility. We have technical standards in place for all of our curriculum programs, as well as many of our economic and workforce development continuing education programs and courses. As I mentioned before, we have the software review and appeals process in place for any new or renewal purchases. Recently, we have begun looking at the accessibility of TechLink announcements. This includes all information that might be in an announcement, such as images, graphics, and attachments. In the future, we hope to work closely with the college bookstore to ensure that textbook accessibility is available, including all supplemental materials. In today's session, we will be covering the following topics. We will look at the built-in accessibility checker within Microsoft Office. We will look at how to make a hyperlink accessible. We will talk about adding alternative text to graphics and images. We will look at accessible fonts, headings, lists, tables. We will also view color contrast and talk about the appropriate contrast that is needed. We will discuss how to make your videos accessible. And finally, we will look at creating and editing PDF documents to make them accessible. First, we're going to look at the built-in accessibility checker that is in your Microsoft Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and Outlook apps. In order to access the built-in accessibility checker, you will first go to File, Check for Issues, and then check Accessibility. On the right-hand side here, you will see any errors within your document, as well as warnings. As you click on each of the errors, the object in question will become selected within your document. It also gives you important information as to why to fix this error and steps to fix the error. The warning should also be paid close attention to so as to make the document fully accessible. Another common accessibility issue that we find in not only documents but also TechLink announcements and emails is regarding hyperlinks. Hyperlinks are a full-length web address that can be difficult for a person using a screen reader to understand. It is necessary to change the description of the hypertext. For example, the web address http://classes.oit.ncshu.edu/simple-ways-lesson-2/part-6-hyperlinks/ does not tell anyone anything about the hyperlink. A person clicking on this would not know where they're going or what they're going to be viewing once they get there. So it's important that we change it to accurately describe the hyperlink. Using the Word document, I will show you how to edit the hyperlink to make it more accessible. Here you can see there's quite a lengthy hyperlink. And this does not actually show up on our accessibility checker. So it's important to recognize the need to change this on its own. In order to make it accessible, you will click on the link and then right-click to choose Edit Hyperlink. Here, you're going to change the text to display. It's important that your hyperlink text clearly identifies the content of the resource being linked to. You do not have to include text such as click here, more, or read more, as these kinds of links can be confusing when the screen reader reads it out. So here, we're simply going to put in a description of where that link is taking us. Accessibility resources. We're going to actually change that to do it yourself text accessibility resources and click OK. So here you can see that my hyperlink is still there, but the actual description is much shorter. So a person using a screen reader comes to this, it's going to notify them first that it's a link, and then it's going to say DIY accessibility resources. Fixing hyperlinks is as easy as 1, 2, 3. First, type your full web address into the document, or copy and paste it from your web browser. You will then right-click on the web address and select Edit Text. Then you will type in a descriptive hypertext into the text to display box. You can use these tips in Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and Outlook. Again, fixing the hyperlinks is easy. Once you have your full web address in the document, you will right-click on the web address and select Edit Link. Then type in the description in the text to display box. As I mentioned earlier, common accessibility issues often involve graphics and pictures. All images and graphics must have alternative text or alt text. It's a short written description of an image, which makes sense of that image when it cannot be viewed. The purpose of alt text is to describe the images to visitors who are unable to see them. This includes screen readers and browsers that block images, but also includes users who are visually impaired or otherwise unable to visually identify an image. Including alt text with your images ensures that all users, regardless of their vision, can appreciate the content of your site. If you close your eyes, have someone read the alt text to you, and imagine a reasonably accurate version of the image. Then you're on the right track. Be sure to add alt text to all of your graphics and pictures. This includes photos, illustrations or clip art, images of text such as word clouds, inserted shapes, charts, smart art, and any other embedded objects. A good practice for improving the accessibility of inserted graphics and pictures is to always place them in line. Don't worry about the aesthetics of how the page looks. Making it more accessible is more important. Let's look at this example of how to add appropriate alt text. On this slide, you will see there is an image of a rooster. Alt text can be as detailed as you need it to be. If you want to just put in the description of rooster, it's okay. Better way to have alt text would have rooster crowing. And the best alt text would be red-crested rooster crowing. It depends on your audience and how much detail of the image is needed. Here are some important tips when looking at your alt text. We want to describe the image as specifically as possible, but keep it relatively short. Alt text, first and foremost, is designed to provide a text explanation of the image for users who are unable to see them. If an image truly doesn't convey any meaning or value, and is just there for design purposes, don't include it. You don't have to include the text image of or picture of in your alt text. And the same thing applies to your file name. For example, the file name may be Flyer for 2021. Your alt text should not be Flyer for 2021. Your alt text needs to describe what is in the flyer. The most popular screen readers will cut off an alt text around 125 characters, so keep it less than that. It's already assumed that your alt text is referring to an image, so you don't need to specify that. And ask yourself, is this image really necessary? Can you still get your message across without the image? If you're making a flyer to hang around campus, you probably want to include eye-catching graphics. But if you're sending it out electronically, ask yourself, do I really need it? Let's review again just how easy it is to add alt text. Insert the object or picture into your document. Right-click on the object and select Edit Alt Text. Then type in your descriptive text. Easy as 1, 2, 3. Let's look at some examples in this Word document. We're going to want to use the built-in accessibility checker first. So we will go to File, and then Check for Issues, and then select Check Accessibility. All of our accessibility errors and warnings will be populated on the right side of our screen. The first thing you will notice is that we're missing alternative text for 4 images in our document. What you can do is simply select the first picture, and you can see that it is highlighted on my screen. We're going to want to add alt text to this image in order to get rid of this error message. In order to do so, we will right-click on the image and then choose Edit Alt Text. Again, a short description is best. How would you describe this object and its context to someone who is visually impaired? Again, we don't need to say image of or picture of, as the screen reader will automatically notify the user that it is an image. Here, we can simply state heading styles in Word. And the error for that picture has gone away. Now select the next picture. And we're going to do the same thing. Right-click, Edit Alt Text, keep it short and sweet, sunset at the beach. Let's go down to our next picture. Now this one has some text information that we want to be sure to capture in the alt text. Remember, the image can be informative as well as decorative. For this one, we want to make sure that any text information in the graphic is included. So I'm going to put in here, neighborhood yard sale, Saturday, June 28th, from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. Now, we can certainly include other information as listed in the image, such as the web address, if we would like to. The final picture that is missing alternative text is down here at the bottom, and it is of these 2 adorable giraffes. So again, right-clicking and edit alt text to say 2 giraffes. and you can see that the alternative text errors has gone away. Now, you will find that the hyperlink does not show in our accessibility checker. It's very important to recognize this. Even though it does not show on the accessibility checker that's built in, we still need to make this hyperlink accessible. We also need to make sure that all inserted objects are in line with text. The goal is to ensure that the page reading order makes sense with the image. This is often overlooked. A good practice for improving the accessibility of inserted graphics and pictures is to always place them in line. If the image or object is not in line, it can be difficult for a screen reader user to interact with the object. It can also be difficult to know where the object is relative to the text. Don't worry about the aesthetics of how the page looks. Making it accessible trumps making it pretty. In order to make the text in line, you are going to right-click on the object to get the Wrap Text drop-down options. You're always going to want to select In Line with Text. Let's look at our example. Here we ran the accessibility checker and it's showing us the warning of or the error of an image or object not in line. We'll select that and it shows us that the image of two giraffes is not in line with our text. So we're going to fix it by right-clicking on the image, go to Wrap Text, and then select In Line with Text. The error has gone away, and our image is now going to be read before the text. Another common accessibility issue is with regards to font. It is important that we use a readable sans serif typeface and the font of a minimum of 12 points. Sans serif fonts are made up of mainly straight lines. Sans serif fonts are easier to read when looking at a continuous amount of text. Although serif typefaces also can work well in a heading or personal stationery, they can be difficult to read when reading a lot of text. We want to avoid fonts like this. Remember that the accessibility checker will not pick up on inaccessible fonts. The main difference between serif and sans serif fonts comes down to decorative flourishes. Most accessible fonts are going to be Tahoma, Calibri, Helvetica, Arial, Verdana, and Times New Roman. Let's look at this example in our Word document. Here you will find 4 different types of font. We want to examine each type to ensure that it is accessible for everyone. Let's look at this first example, letter A. This font is in a script, freestyle script. The size of it is good, but the actual type of font is not accessible. We want to change it to something that is sans serif, such as Arial. We want to change the entire script. There we go. Let's look at the second example. Okay, this is definitely not sans serif. You can see it has the little curly ends to the font. So again, we're going to right-click and change this to something that is sans serif. There we go. It's still in an 18-point font, so size is good. Here you can see that we are using a sans serif font, but the size is only 9. We want to change this to at least a 12 in order to be fully accessible. This last example here is not only in italics, but also in a serif script. So first we're going to change this to something that is sans serif. We're going to take the italics off, and the font size is good. Now here, the word favorite has been done in red font color. perhaps for emphasis. A better way to emphasize a word is to use an underline feature. So we're going to right-click and choose Underline and change the font color back to black. Let's look at another common accessibility issue that we encounter, which involves color contrast. Color contrast is important for everyone to be able to see clearly and read the information. Foreground text needs to have sufficient contrast with the background color. This includes not only text on images, background gradients, or buttons, as well as other images and elements. This rule does not apply for logos or incidental text, such as text that happens to be in a photograph. Here we have examples of good and bad color contrast. In the first box in the upper left, you will see we have a black background with yellow text. This is really good contrast. Below that, however, we have a green background with red text. This is a bad example of contrast. Going back up to the right, we have a dark gray background with white text. This is good contrast. And below that, we have a light gray background with dark gray text. And this is another example of a bad contrast. We want to avoid red and black combinations. People who cannot detect red will confuse red and black, so the item will not be legible. Avoid red and green combinations as well. Approximately 5% of people cannot distinguish between red and green colors. Let's look at this example in our Word document. Here you can see we have 4 sentences in different colored fonts. The first sentence here, this color is very difficult to see. It's actually a light peach colored font. And with the white background, it's a very low contrast and therefore not a good way to use text. The second example, slightly darker colored font, but still can be difficult for some people to see with the white background. The third example is a red colored font on the white background, and this is a better way to use color contrast. However, the last example shows black text on a white background. This is going to be the best. There are several tools you can use, such as Colorzilla and Wave, to analyze the contrast ratios to ensure that your document is accessible for all. The next accessibility issue that we're going to look at are headings. Making text larger and bold does not make it a heading. In order to convert text to heading in Microsoft Word, you must use the built-in heading styles, such as heading 1, 2, or 3 under the Styles menu of the Home tab. Using good heading structure helps people without vision to understand how the document is organized. Screen reader users can jump between headings, which makes navigation much more efficient than if there were no headings. This also comes in really handy when creating a table of contents. Let's go back to our example in the Word document. We're going to want to add the heading styles to our document. First, we will select where it says Digital Accessibility Examples. This is the title of our document. So we're going to want to highlight that text and then choose Title from the Styles menu. Each one of the numbered points below is a heading. So again, we are going to highlight that text and choose heading 1. It automatically is going to change the color and the style to what is associated with heading 1. However, we can easily change this. In order to change the color and font style of our heading, we are going to right-click on heading 1 and select Modify. Here we can change our font color to black. We could change the style to whatever we prefer, as well as the size, and then click OK. and it's automatically adjusted it here. Scroll down to number 2, and we are going to do the same thing. We're going to highlight the text and choose heading 1. It's automatically changed it to the settings that we had chosen before. And then we'll just simply add our number 2 back. Let's look at lists. Using the list formatting tools helps to make the content more accessible for persons using a screen reader. When the screen reader encounters a list, it can announce the presence of a list and tell the user how many items are in that list. Here are some tips to help you get true lists. Stick with a plain round dot for any bullet list. Especially avoid any of the fancy picture bullets like chevrons or check marks. For numbered or multi-level lists, stick with numbers, letters, and Roman numerals. You can find these styles in the menu under the Home tab. This can be used in any Word, PowerPoint, and Outlook documents, not in Excel. Here we have an example of 4 types of fruit. We want to make this into a list that is accessible. What we can do is highlight our text, come up to the Home tab, and go to our bullets, and choose the black solid dot bullet. It'll automatically apply to our list. And if we need to add an additional item to the list, we can hit the enter button and another bullet automatically applies. And then we type in the other item. Tables can be extremely difficult for screen readers, especially if there's lots of merged and split cells going on. It makes it hard for the screen reader to determine the reading order. Tables can be very difficult for screen reader users to understand unless they include markup that explicitly defines the relationships between all the parts, such as headers and data cells. Tables that include nested tables, split cells, or merged cells can trip up even the best screen reading program. We're going to look at our example Word document again. Here I have already inserted a table, but you can see over in our accessibility checker that there are warnings regarding our table. There are merged or split cells in our table that need to be fixed. It tells you why it should be fixed and how to fix it. We're going to want to delete any empty cells first. So we'll simply right-click and delete cell, and we're going to shift it to the left. We're going to do the same thing below here. Now you can see that our table is not reading appropriately because first there's no header, and also the cells do not line up accordingly. We do not have information listed for Fred with regards to a color or an animal, and for Phil we are missing an animal. Looking at this example again, we can choose to split the cell in order to create the space for the data that we need to insert. So on this space, we're going to right-click and then choose Split Cells. We're going to want 2 columns. And we're going to do the same thing below. Right-click, Split Cells to 2 columns. So here we can input the data for Fred that we need to, for his favorite color and for his pet. We don't want to leave any empty data cells. So under each person, we're going to input the additional information that's needed. For Phil, you can see that we have that blank space, so we're going to delete that and again shift to the left. And we can simply expand that to make it look aesthetic. Now, of course, we still want to have a header row. So what we'll need to do is add that to each one of these to designate name, favorite color, and pet. In order to do that, we are going to simply right-click next to our table and go to Insert, and we're going to put in a column to the left. And here we're going to put in our information such as name, favorite color, and type of pet. Here are some helpful tips when looking at creating an accessible table. You want to include a header row. You want to use a simple table structure. We're going to also want to add alt text to the table. Avoid any blank, merged, and split cells. And don't use a screenshot of the table. In most cases, you should avoid using tables just to make the layout of the page look a certain way, like using tables to create a form. It's best to only use tables when presenting rows and columns of relevant information. An accessible video can be helpful to anyone at different times, but can be critical for people who have a disability. Captions can help us when watching videos in loud environments, such as on the bus or in places where you need to be quiet, like a library or at work. All videos should have closed captioning. Fortunately, videos have come a long way with closed captions being available on most videos online. We see closed captions now on even our social media platforms such as Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram. But don't assume that a video will have the closed captioning. Always check first before posting it to your class or presentation. Transcripts can be thought of a text version of your video. A transcript should include not only what is spoken in the video, but also descriptions of actions or important information that's seen on screen. Usually, a fully accessible video should include both captions and a transcript. Be sure to check to make sure that closed captions are included. Don't assume. You're going to want to review the transcripts of your videos and edit the errors when needed. If creating your own video, work with our CTL at Forsyth Tech to have closed captioning and transcripts added. Some software will create transcripts as you talk, but make sure it captures the right words. If using someone else's video, you may not have access to edit the information. If a video includes only pictures, it still must have descriptive text or an audio description. We recently had something similar on a TechLink announcement, where a video was added and only had pictures with music playing, but our CTL helped fix the issue. Here's an example of an audio description that you might recognize. Can you visualize what's being described?
Now, in a black sky, a sliver of sunlight crests the Earth. Rays of light shoot off the continents, and a three-dimensional word orbits the planet, Universal. Words appear, www.universalstudios.com.
Now let's take a look at how to make your TechLink announcement most accessible. All of the accessibility tips covered today apply to all digital content, including TechLink announcements. I always encourage people to know that text is best. Most of the issues that we've seen with announcements are with regards to hyperlinks, alt text, and attachments. Often the text in the announcement is enough, and the attachment is not needed. Do we really need that cute flyer that tells me the exact same thing the announcement's already told me? Probably not. It's important that we add alt text to any images, graphics, or logos included in the announcement. Alt text is important in every digital platform. As a reminder, if you include an attachment, make sure to use your built-in checker before attaching the document. Let me show you how to add alt text to an image within your TechLink announcement. You're going to first create the new announcement. Put in a title, whatever you feel is appropriate. Choose the category. And then in the body of your announcement is where you're going to insert your image. You're going to go up to the top and choose Insert, Picture, and then we're going to choose it from our computer. And then click OK. Now the image is in the body of our TechLink announcement. However, when we click on this image and go back up to the top where it says image, you will see that our alt text has actually been pre-populated with the file name, which is simply picture2.jpg. Tells us nothing about the actual image itself. So we're going to want to add appropriate alt text. Here I'm going to add in the alt text that would more accurately describe this image and state it is a silhouette of adults and children at sunset. Now when a person using a screen reader comes to this image, it will notify them that it's an image and then describe it as a silhouette of adults and children at sunset. All the rules that we've discussed today apply to PDF documents. The easiest way to create an accessible PDF is to begin with an accessible Word document or PowerPoint presentation. Once you've created the accessible document, you will export it through File and then Export, Create PDF or XPS document, and then Create PDF or XPS. Do not use Print to PDF. Even though your document started accessible in Word or PowerPoint, you must still run the accessibility checker within Adobe or Foxit Phantom. Although a few folks around Forsyth Tech are still using Adobe Acrobat, the majority of our faculty and staff are using Foxit Phantom. ITS can install this for you for free. Both Foxit Phantom and Adobe have a built-in accessibility checker. With our Foxit Phantom PDF software, it is located under the Accessibility tab, and then you would choose Full Check. Once you select Full Check, it will run the report and let you know what, if any, errors your document has. The built-in checker will let you know what needs to be fixed. Here you can see that there is an image that is lacking alt text. We need to tag our PDF. Our primary language has not been filled in, neither has our title, and the tab order needs to be done. The items that have a blue question mark next to them, such as logical reading order and color contrast, will need to be checked manually by you. If you right-click on any of the issues, it will have an option of fixing it. You can also click on where it says Explain to get more details about the accessibility issues. PDF files can be one of the most difficult files to make accessible, especially if it started out as inaccessible to begin with. There's a lot that we could cover on fixing issues. Please note, we can work with you individually to go through any complex issues that may arise, such as nested images or tagged content. Here are some resources to help guide you on your journey to creating accessible documents. We have included the link to our TechLink page, as well as the accessibility website. You can also find here rules for the accessibility checker within the Microsoft Office products, as well as a video on creating accessible Microsoft Word documents. And finally, there's a link for creating accessible PDF documents. As mentioned, PDF accessibility is one of the more difficult things to learn. Members of our committee are happy to meet with you individually to work on this. Thank you for your time today.